Welcome to another episode of Stezworld. I'm your host Steven, and today's episode, this is a part 2 and an update video of traveling to Brazil. One of the major changes that occurred from 4 years ago when I made my first video of travel tips traveling into Brazil on today's date, today is January of 2022, is that US citizens, Australian citizens, Japanese citizens, and certain other countries do not require a visa in order to enter Brazil. When I mean visa, I mean a tourist visa. Before, back in the days, not too long ago, you actually needed a travel tourist visa in order to enter Brazil. Now that's been eliminated, so now we could freely travel into Brazil without a visa for 90 days. That is one of the biggest changes that occurred during the last 4 years, and I say it is great. It is great because normally applying for a visa is a hassle, and the fees and the lines and all that stuff. Also, one of the requirements to enter Brazil now that we are in a pandemic, we actually need a PCR COVID test done 72 hours before a flight. Also, you have the options to take a antigen COVID test done 24 hours before your flight. So just remember to take your COVID test, either antigen 24 hours before your flight or a PCR test 72 hours before your flight. Another big change that I noticed when I went to Brazil recently, this past October, November of 2021, is that back in a few years back, I remember when I used to travel between cities, there were technically there was no signal, cell phone signals between cities or between towns on the highway. So this time when I was traveling by bus to different cities, I noticed there were cell phone signals. So that was a big plus, a big infrastructure upgrade that's going on in Brazil. But I'm not gonna say that if it's nationwide. I normally saw this mostly on the southeastern part of Brazil, this big change in cell phone signals. So now if you get stranded in between cities or town, now you have the access to call an emergency service or call someone to help out. Another thing that I really like about Brazil are the people. The people are very nice, friendly. I like the food as well. They would like to invite you to their houses. For example, on my last trip, I wanted to blog a lot, but I couldn't because I was getting invited so many times to so many houses for each meal, pretty much. And it was nice. It was nice eating a lot over there. I kind of gained weight during this trip. Another thing I kind of noticed in Brazil compared to, let's say, 4 years ago now, because we are still in a pandemic, unemployment, I believe, went up down there. Pretty much it affected the whole entire world. Also, inflation went up big time over there in Brazil compared to certain other countries. Pretty much it's been affected around the world. Food prices went up. Everything went up. Food prices, transportation went up. Everything went up. So just be mindful that when you travel down there, things are going to be a little bit more expensive compared to a few years ago. I remember when I was there, it was about $1 was about 5 reals, 5.70 more or less. It was creeping almost to the 6 reals mark for $1. If you're traveling from the United States, it's going to be very cheap, but in reality, compared to other Latin American countries, Brazil is quite expensive in certain aspects, like especially on clothing. Clothing is expensive, and some other goods, electronics and stuff. Food is still cheap, but it's a little bit more expensive food over there compared to when I used to live down there about 5 years ago. So another tip while you're traveling to Brazil, when I was down there, if you're going to go back to your country of origin, normally you need to take a COVID test in order to go back. I kind of noticed that when I went over there, the Brazilians were still banned to travel to certain other countries around the world, especially the United States. When I went back, now at the time of this recording, Brazilians could come back to the United States but you have to be vaccinated, take the COVID test in order to be allowed to come back to the States. That's for non-US citizens and non-green card holders. And when I went to take my COVID test to come back, a lot of the clinics, pretty much, I'm gonna say not the one that I went, but actually the one that I went, but I'm gonna say a lot of them, they're not used to seeing foreigners taking a COVID test in order to return back. So when I went to take the test, they were very skeptical why I'm taking a COVID test, especially antigen, in order to travel to the United States. I told them it's a requirement. And normally say, do you need a PCR? Why antigen? Because the antigen is acceptable in order to travel back to the United States. So they weren't used to it. I'm guessing right now they're seeing more frequent maybe visitors or residents, Brazilian citizens that are taking the test in order to come travel to the States or any other country. But during that time when I went in October 2021, it was not common for them or the laboratory staff to see a foreigner coming in for a COVID test in order to travel. The service was quick. I took the COVID test in Rio de Janeiro. It cost me roughly about $30. Very cheap for us. It's very cheap to take this test. The results came out in 2 hours. They sent it to me email. I just print out the email, and when I went to travel back to the United States, I just presented my COVID test and it was acceptable. And that's something to be aware of. Make sure you know a location where to take a COVID test. Make an appointment if it's possible. If many places are walk-in, but I recommend doing an appointment just in case you have a reserved spot, because now there are more visitors traveling to other countries now. So taking a COVID test is pretty much the norm now, going to many different countries around the world. I want to say thank you for watching this video. This is some of the updates that I did from my first video that I did about traveling to Brazil. And please subscribe, please like this video, please share. And if you have any other experience of traveling in Brazil or any other tips, you could comment down below. And you know what? And I'll see you on the next time. Safe travels.